I'm Dr. Duke for The New American. And I tell you, Thanksgiving Day is upon us, and it is one of those holidays that I think many people are attacking. Many of the progressives are attacking it. Joy Reid, that lunatic on MSNBC, came out and called it a holiday with questionable origins. That's typical progressive rot, right? The fact that Pilgrims and Native Americans sat down together and shared and swapped cultural ideas and technologies. The fact that down the road, the encounters between Europeans and Native Americans would get violent, in no way, shape, or form, Joyless Reid, has an impact on the significance of the holiday. And the more I teach at the universities, that's my primary job, the more I see this. 4th of July has to go, the holiday, all those fireworks that are reminiscent of bombs going off. This is upsetting to the progressive left. Thanksgiving is upsetting to the progressive left because America became a basically colony of the United States, and that bothers them for all sorts of historical and politically correct reasons. But the more I think about Thanksgiving Day, the more I think it is perhaps one of the more necessary holidays. In fact, it may be the most necessary of the non-religious holidays, non-specifically religious holidays. And the reason I bring that up is because part of my professoriate, as part of one of my jobs at teaching at the university, is I teach Shakespeare. That's my primary thing. And I always am amazed in teaching Shakespeare, the degree to which what he says in his plays 400 years ago are just as relevant and prescient today as they were then. I've been teaching King Lear to one of my senior English classes. And if you ever had a chance to read King Lear, it is probably the single greatest work of art in Western culture that talks about the need for gratitude. The entire premise of the play, of course, is the old king having his daughter. He gives away his kingdom and his to his daughters, and they immediately turn on him. And the entire premise of the play is what happens to society when gratitude goes away. And I had a lecture with my kids the other day at the university, and I pointed this out. Shakespeare does make this really important point. Gratitude, the Christian virtue of being grateful for what you have, for what others have done for you, what your parents, what your civilization, your nation, what they have done for you in allowing you to be free and to pursue life and liberty in the pursuit of happiness. Shakespeare makes it very clear that when gratitude goes away, civilization cannot stand. From that perspective, if you think about it, it's true. Civilizationally, morality can go away, love and sacrifice can go away, humility can go away. But when gratitude goes away, it almost seems like it's the last virtue that is a bulwark between us and chaos. And, of course, if you're familiar with King Lear, it ends up in the middle of the play as ingratitude between brother and brother, ingratitude between children and parents, ingratitude across the spectrum, literally drives civilization into a jungle state, a state of chaos. And you think, apply that today to America. I actually asked my students, where do you learn in school? These are kids who've been in school from the time they were 5-year-olds to the time they're 22, 23, seniors and juniors in college. I asked them, where in your public school experience or your university experience have you ever been taught to be grateful? To be grateful for your country. Because on university campuses, being grateful, or another way of phrasing that, giving thanks, Thanksgiving, being grateful to your country is now considered jingoism. It's considered nationalism. It's considered white supremacy. All non-Western cultures, multiculturalists will tell us, have every right to be proud of themselves, even if their cultures are backward, 14th century, even if their cultures enslave women and kill gays. Nevertheless, non-Western cultures should be very thankful and very happy about their cultural achievements, but it's only Western cultures that are asked not to be. To be grateful to your country, to be grateful to the founding fathers, to the constitutional order, to celebrate Thanksgiving the way we do, we historically have done, giving thanks for our bounty, our blessings, for our nation, for our freedoms and liberties. That's now considered white supremacy. It's now considered toxic nationalism and jingoism. This is highly problematic when my kids could tell me, my university kids couldn't point to anywhere in their public schooling where they actually learned that they had a reason to be grateful. Again, while gratitude is a very important Christian virtue, it's also a civic virtue. So nowhere in their education have they been taught to be patriotic, have they been taught to love their country, have they been taught to see the good of their country and not just the bad. And so are we surprised then that our university kids, our young people, see no value in the country, would be happy to transform this country from a free society to a socialist state, that they want to see the First and Second Amendments edited so that hate speech, whatever that means, is not allowed, so that guns were no longer the province of the individual citizen. When we teach kids not to be grateful, we are teaching them hatred. We are teaching them intolerance, and we are teaching them ignorance. Yes, and one of the remarkable achievements that I think we all can be thankful for on this Thanksgiving is the fact that we in the West are not shy about talking about where we've floundered, where we have made mistakes. The irony is that American school kids know more about the legacy of slavery. They know more about oppression, the oppression that Western countries engaged in, than they know about any other aspect of Western culture. They can't tell you anything meaningful about the achievements of Western culture. In fact, when I try to suggest to these kids that their free speech, that their educational opportunities, that the relative wealth that they enjoy, other than, people, 19 and 20-year-olds in many countries around the world don't have the luxury of sitting in classrooms. They're working 50, 60 hours a day to work the soil, to feed their families, to find a way to keep life moving, simple basic necessities. But in America, you can be 25 years old, and you can be in school since the time you were 5, and never actually had to have a meaningful job. You could be a professional student for the first quarter of your life, and no one thinks twice about it. These things are things that they should be grateful for. We have turned our public schools and our universities into toxically ungrateful places. Our mainstream media sources, our tech giants, our socialist, progressive, Democrat presidential candidates, they harp on the same theme. To be grateful and to love your country is to participate in racism, bigotry, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, the whole litany. But that worldview, as King Lear makes devastatingly clear, is an anti-civilizational worldview. How do you improve your country if you tell people they have nothing to be grateful for? You can't. You can only destroy it. To teach kids to be wary and suspicious of our achievements, and not also to recognize the genius and the liberty and the prosperity it's brung, that is toxic anti-education. It is the opposite of gratitude. It is ingratitude. Dangerous ingratitude, which leads to hate, to misunderstanding, and to the kind of cultural rot we see today. And it's not surprising to me that Thanksgiving is actually more in the crosshairs of the progressive atheist socialists than even Christmas is. You think Christmas would really bother them as a federal holiday. But I think they realize that Christmas has been hijacked by Santa Claus, reindeer, and gift giving. So they're not as bothered by that as they are Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the holiday. It's kind of like second to Columbus Day in holidays they have to do away with, and they've already pretty much done away with Columbus Day. Now they're turning their attention to Thanksgiving. And really at the core of this is a ungrateful refusal to recognize that the greatest critics of Western culture who live in Western countries are allowed to do that without any consequence. American professors, public high school and middle school teachers, mainstream media outlets, they can hate their country, they can be utterly and thoroughly ungrateful to it without consequence. You'd think, wouldn't you, that that would be something to be thankful for? That they can be incredibly myopic, they can be morally obtuse, they can be heart-rendingly ungrateful to the civilization and the culture that allows them to spend their lives, oftentimes tenured at the professorial level, doing nothing more but talking down their country, trashing their country for their students, providing their students with nothing but a one-sided anti-American narrative that ignores the freedom and the liberation. Ask the question, why is it that civil rights, human rights, gay rights, women's rights, social rights have evolved only in these so-called evil Western cultures? You would think that all of those pioneering crusades for human rights, basic civil liberties, would be something that the progressive who hates his country would still find something worthy of thanks. Thanksgiving means that in this country you can hate it, But the more we do that and the more we tolerate that, the more we refuse to show gratitude, the worse civilization turns to chaos. Thank you for joining us on this Thanksgiving. I'm Dr. Duke with the New American Magazine, and this has been my take on the news.